You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 7th of May. Illegal immigrant fiddles £30,000 and gets to stay. Lib Dem Council leader assaults Labour colleague. MI6 spy sent to escapology conference shortly before his death. Spain abolishes free health care for immigrants. Hollande defeats Sarkozy. Drone kills 2 Al-Qaeda terrorists in Yemen. Thought for the day, the elections and the party. UK news. An illegal immigrant won't be deported after fiddling the British out of £30,000 in benefits because of human rights laws. The single mother from Zambia, Joy Chitimba, who cheated the system and is in Britain illegally, is living in an upmarket flat in Chelsea. The ridiculous anti-British court ruling says she can stay in Britain and keep her flat and all her benefits. Kensington and Chelsea Council has 8,000 people on its housing waiting list. Chitimba came to Britain as a student, got pregnant and now lives a life of luxury on benefits in one of Britain's most expensive areas. I wonder if she has to pay her student loan back like we Brits have to. During the election count in St Helens local elections, a scuffle between the Lib Dem Council leader Brian Spencer and Labour's Mark Johnson broke out. One person commented that Mr Spencer threw a punch towards Mr Johnson, who fell over a table and landed on his mum's knee. Merseyside police have been informed of an assault but did not arrest anybody. 4 people were arrested at 3 separate incidents in Peterborough on election day when Labour took 5 seats from the Tories. The arrests were in connection with alleged electoral malpractice. Amongst them were a 17-year-old boy and a 55-year-old man from the Gladstone Community Centre, the 55-year-old being charged with aiding underage voting. 2 other arrests were made, an 18-year-old and a 31-year-old man. They have been bailed and not named, which is highly suspicious as the police have launched 5 investigations over allegations of fraud in local elections amid claims that the system is wide open to abuse. One of the headings quoted is "Investigations over electoral fraud in heavily Muslim colonised areas of UK." Police inquiries are also underway in Kirklees in West Yorkshire and London. Gareth Williams, a so-called spy who worked for MI6, was sent to a DEFCON conference shortly before his death in a sports bag. This conference, which costs around £1,000 to attend, is attended by hackers, fraudsters and tricksters. The death of Williams, which had an entire team experimenting in how to lock yourself in a bag in a bath and then die committee, is open to a wide range of so-called causes, ranging from sex gone wrong to death of a spy scenario. Hopefully we will never know. Euronews. Spain has abolished free healthcare for illegal immigrants entering its country. The country, which has been decimated by the Eurozone, has finally stood up to the hateful human rights bill and has shouted "No more help for illegals." The brave Spanish have had enough of its own people not getting quick treatment because of illegals jamming up their health service without paying a penny. The British government should follow the Spanish lead here and do exactly the same thing, before there is seemingly an apartheid war against Brits receiving any treatment at all in favour of newcomers and illegals. Our elderly are discriminated against, whilst any immigrant who has paid nothing into the NHS receive treatment. Viva la España! François Hollande, the socialist candidate, defeated Nicolas Sarkozy yesterday in the second run of the French presidential elections. Well, let's face it, when the French do not have the Germans around, they usually resort to storming the Bastille and cutting off the heads of anyone who can think. Hollande will have his work cut out, although on one reporter's statement that immigration does not worry people over here, he will not have to work on that one. However, there is a very good reason why immigration per se is not talked about over the channel so much, or reported, one might say. 1, most of them come over here. 2, any of them who stay in France actually speak French. And 3rd, they are all kettled outside Paris, the capital city. And also a much more salient point. The UK is a much smaller island than France is a country. There are fears, however, with a socialist president about the Eurozone and the financial impact such a leader might entail. Stocks and shares on the international market are already down. World News. Reports have claimed a suspected US drone strike has killed 2 Al-Qaeda terrorists as they drove along in their car. The 2 terrorists were killed in Yemen, a major stronghold for Islamic fundamentalists on the Western world. Fawd al-Kaiser and his buddy Fahad Salam al-Qadam were both killed in the Shaba district of the country. Both were on the most wanted list. Good. Thought for the day. Elections and the party. Well, it has been and gone, and it would appear to our enemies and those amongst us with little faith that we were given a good thrashing. Not so. Without sounding like one of those laughing policeman dolls with the eternal grinning face, one has to look at the facts. Only a third of the voting population came out to actually vote, probably due to bad weather, which always seems to get the Brits, doesn't it? 70% of the man in the street simply did not bother. There may be several reasons for this, one being that there is very little between the so-called main parties, none of which actually do what they profess to do. In fact, when Millipede was shown in a triumphal walk round Southampton, he was surrounded, literally surrounded, by a wide variety of ethnic peoples, in fact even more ethnic looking than himself, if possible. Now I may be getting down to the level of Baroness Warsi when I say that Millipede does not look human. He looks like a dummy from a Wallace and Gromit movie. The first one, in fact, with the villain, who looks just like Millipede. He has everything on his face that Cameroon doesn't, and in more quantity, but I digress. Warsi, how did she become a baroness? Who do I have to sleep with to get a title? A nice one, that is, not a rude one. I would have thought Begum better in her case, but I will quote what she said. She apparently told the BBC that it was interesting that a rise in UKIP candidates corresponded with a drop in the number fielded by its racist rival. Who's that then? Could she be referring to us, the British National Party? Well, she set off a time bomb with a UKIP spin doctor, and they have them, hordes of them. Gawain Towler, who wrote on Twitter to his 1700 followers, "Bleep, Warsi, you bleep." He later apologised. Apparently the Tories have been left astounded by UKIP, who, although failing to take many seats, have appropriated what the Tories claim is the right-wing agenda and the anti-EU stance. Well, let us hope that in future elections UKIP receive the total lack of positive media and a huge wave of media hatred that we have to fight against. Let me make this clear to all. UKIP are not right-wing in any sense of the word. They are anti-EU, whilst most of them actually sit in the EU, and it is well known that Farage has taken the EU for a money pot. They make it public knowledge they despise the racist BNP, and I would think UKIP provides a very safe haven for people who do not have the courage of their convictions or the love of their country in heart. In short, a cowardly party and well deserving of cowardly ex-cons in my opinion. In fact, I am surprised that Warsi hasn't joined them, but to see her and Farage in the same stall would make me heave, frankly. So we come down to the 30% who actually voted. Good for them, and the ones that voted for us an even bigger thank you. It is a miracle we got the votes we did and actually did rather well where we stood, considering the low turnout, general disinterest and the ethnic factor in London, which impacted hugely on our vote there. The media must know that London is a lost city. Due to the massive immigration over the last 20 years, district after district is falling to the so-called ethnic minority, who are in fact a majority in the areas they occupy. Margaret Hodge brought the bussing of ethnics in just before an election to a fine art in Barking and Dagenham. In fact, wherever the British National Party have good support, the opposing powers bring in their ethnic slaves. If they aren't African, they're Muslim or Asian. Most of the councils around London are Labour and staffed by immigrants, so they're home from home really. Although we have ethnic supporters and members in our party, to the vast ignorant majority of Brits we are racist. We are tough on immigration, and although I know it not to be true, somewhere in their minds they see soldiers going around house to house rooting out ethnics and part ethnics and sending them off. Absolute rubbish, but fed upon by the UAF thugs and Marxists. And it works, doesn't it? The average white Brit on the street surely has the brain to see that our party is a recipient of selective thinking and voting. This is how the communists operate. They profess to accept all ethnic minorities, but watch and wait. Once these people have served their purpose, they will be in a worse scenario than the British National Party could ever envisage for them. They think they have escaped like turkeys voting for Christmas and New Year has come for them. Think again. The worst atrocities in history have occurred under communist or socialist rule, whether it be by a Euro-socialist union or an individual government, and usually in the name of the people. We did well, but we will do better in the future. This was a protest vote by those who bothered against the Lib Dem coalition. History always shows that coalition governments are never popular, and the British people voted against them, and the only party they think was the Labour Party. This is sad, as we have as a country suffered many years of Labour rule, and they have left us richer as a party and left the country poorer and more heavily groaning under anti-British laws than ever. Do we Brits have memories that poor, or are we hiding from what is painful to us? I believe the people who voted for Labour were voting from fear for their jobs and fear for their homes. The considerations of their country and their future did not feature. It was a primal vote, brought on by clever propaganda and a socialist media. They will come round again, as countries in Europe are doing. Give a socialist a free-thinking society and they will give you back nothing. No freedom of speech, no freedom at all in fact. But perhaps the man in the street has to learn that lesson again in order to become a true nationalist. So our thanks to those who voted for us, who worked so hard these last few months, and our time will come. As Nick Griffin said, we are not going away. Remember, a man who is not true to his country is not true to himself. And finally, the nationalist right has won a big victory in Greece. Golden Dawn, the party with the right views on immigration, won seats in the Greek parliament during this week's elections. The party wants to mine the border with the Islamic neighbouring country of Turkey and also expel immigrants who are taking jobs from the Greek people. They have a wide appeal to a country that has been hammered by the Eurozone. Leader Nicholas Michalaikis, a great man in people's eyes, commented that nobody should fear me if they are a good Greek citizen. Anyone who is a traitor, I do not care. Don't you just love guys like this? You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night, and I hope you had a restful bank holiday weekend. It's because of human rights laws. The single mother from Zambia, Joy Chitimba, who cheated the system and is in Britain illegally, is living in an upmarket flat in Chelsea. The ridiculous anti-British court ruling says she can stay in Britain and keep her flat and all her benefits. Kensington and Chelsea...
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the #1 in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 7th of May. Illegal immigrant fiddles £30,000 and gets to stay. Lib Dem Council leader assaults Labour colleague. MI6 spy sent to escapology conference shortly before his death. Council has 8,000 people on its housing waiting list. Chitimba came to Britain as a student, got pregnant and now lives a life of luxury on benefits in one of Britain's most expensive areas. I wonder if she has to pay her student loan back like we Brits have to. During the election count in St Helens local, Spain abolishes free health care for immigrants. Hollande defeats Sarkozy. Drone kills 2 Al-Qaeda terrorists in Yemen. Thought for the day, the elections and the party. UK news. An illegal immigrant won't be deported after fiddling the British out of £30,000 in benefits.